ahead and get us started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Amanda Miller, and I'm the Associate Director for the National Consortium for Data Science, also known as NCDS. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the 2025 NCDS Fall Career Panel, Analyzing Data Science Careers. Uh,
Woohoo!
And it is our pleasure to introduce today's career panel with this in mind. I have a request for all of our audience members. Be present. Resist the call to multitask. The panelists and moderator who are speaking with you this evening have never shared a stage before. So seize the opportunity to listen and engage with these experts. They are being generous with their time and knowledge, and we are so grateful for it. We do have a couple of housekeeping items to address. We have disabled Zoom Q&A for attendees, and all questions related to the panel should be uploaded to Easy Retro, which is our crowdsourcing Q&A platform. My colleague Leah is going to share that in the Zoom chat now, and we'll share instructions and the link again during the Q&A portion. Please add questions and comments as they arise throughout the panel, and you can also upvote existing questions during the event. We will leave about 20 minutes at the end of our time together for audience Q&A. After Q&A, we'll invite you to share feedback on this event. And I really hope that you'll take a moment to tell us how to improve and tell us a little bit about the content that interests you most. And finally, we'll provide a couple of announcements about upcoming programs. So with all of this in mind, I'm going to hand the event over to Sarah Egan Warren, our panel moderator. Sarah is a teaching assistant professor at the Institute for Advanced Analytics at North Carolina State University. You can find her speaking at conferences, leading faculty learning groups across the UNC system schools, and educating folks about ethical data storytelling. Sarah, we are so happy you'll be steering the conversations this evening, and now I'm going to officially pass the mic to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amanda, for having me back. I'm really excited to be here with this wonderful panel and to share out information. I know that careers and job search is a really stressful thing. So I hope tonight you're going to get some great ideas from our fantastic panelists. So I'm going to go in the order that I see them on my screen and ask each of one of our panelists to introduce themselves, tell us your title and where you are working. And we're going to start off with Rashali.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. I am Rushali Sawant. I am a data scientist with SAS, and I am in the data ethics practice, overlooking the practical implementation of trustworthy AI into our platform. So all the nice fairness, bias, elements, AI governance, you name it, we are doing it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rashali. Laura, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Laura Fairclough. I'm working for Metametrics, which is a company based in Durham. They do basically text difficulty measurements for primarily right now for English and Spanish, but I'm an Arabic NLP scientist. So I'm working on expanding our product to Arabic and doing all sorts of exciting machine learning things with a less commonly used language.
Excellent. Next up, Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Hadley. I am a security researcher at Microsoft. I work on the AI Red Team, which is a group of folks that kind of test out AI systems for potential harms, usually prior to their launch.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Ben.
Hey, everybody. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. I work at Google, specifically within Google Cloud Consulting as a Gen AI transformation manager. Easier way to understand is I help customers basically define what their use cases are and then implement the generative AI solution in their environment in production.
Great. Thank you, all of you, for being here. I want to start off thinking big picture about your roles. And if you could think about something that you really love about what you're doing, working in data science or with AI, And then one thing that is really challenging for you. So if we can get that balance of something you love and something that you're really kind of bumping up against and challenged by. Whoever would like to start off, jump in, just unmute yourself.
My background is in linguistics, and so I really enjoy making sure that all of the products I work on make sense for how humans use language, in whatever language they speak and whatever platform it is. I just think it's a really cool way to apply what I studied and make sure that things work naturally for humans. But that's also, in a sense, a lot of the challenge is communicating with people, usually that I work with, who are not experts in linguistics, who are like, why is this doing this thing? And it's like, well, that's how that language works. And that's how human language works. And so trying to kind of bring those two pieces together to make sure you have a product that is successful for real humans, while also like figuring out some of the back end of, well, like, how do I make this work from a technical side that might have different assumptions built in?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Laura. Anyone else want to jump in on this one? Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, I would say mine is something that is both something I really love and something that makes it challenging, which is kind of the state that AI is in. I get to work on really cutting edge AI technologies. I get to see them firsthand and start probing them for really kind of potential novel harms. But that also, while it's really exciting, is really challenging because there's so much going on in this space. And I feel like something new and interesting is happening pretty much every day. And so it takes a lot of effort to kind of stay on top of all of the new technologies that are coming out and the harms that are possible too.
Great. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say the good thing is that this technology makes it feel that it's very accessible to everyone. And so you're able to quickly open up ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude and just get answers, and pretty amazing answers right away. But conversely, it then feels like you could implement these things, kind of what Emily's alluding to, in production for companies with a clickable button. And the difference between planning a trip to Italy versus answering financial services questions that need to comply with regulations in a generative fashion is a vastly different solution. And so there's a lot of education that needs to happen, or is currently happening, of the expectations of how long and how more difficult that perfection process is.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks for sharing that, Ben.
Yeah.
Rashali.
Yeah, I would like to add one thing. When all the panelists have alluded, like the technology that is going at a pace and keeping up with it and making sure that it is not causing any unintentional harm, because there is only few. I don't think any software developer or data scientist begins her day by, oh, let me program something that might harm someone, unless you are in a hacker, ethical hacker, or whatnot. But then, how do we make sure that these systems that are coming up are really human centric, are really transparent enough, are really taking that inclusive, like in the case of languages here, we have all these great LLMs which are essentially trained on bunch of languages, but there are certain low resource languages which are not represented. So how do we make sure that can be done technically is the challenging part.
Well, I love the theme that has already popped up about the importance of being human-centric and accessible, and how humans actually use language and protecting humans from harm. Those are all really important things. So thanks for starting us off kind of thinking about that. It's going to be in the back of our heads for the rest of the evening. When we look over the questions that were submitted beforehand, there was lots and lots of questions about what degrees are needed, what kind of training is best, how can someone best prepare themselves for a career in data science? And so can you all talk to us a little bit about your own academic journey? Like, what did you study, and what made you to decide to pursue those degrees? And we can just go down the line again. Rashali, if you want to start off, tell us about your academic journey.
Yeah, sure. So I have a background. I have a bachelor's in engineering, and then I worked in software for about 3 years. And then before I did my MBA in marketing, because I wanted to combine my technical skills with the understanding of the business to make sure that we are solving the problems at hand and not just doing the technicality. That was just me. And then I did my master's in data science because I really loved working with numbers, wanted to dig more into it. And my journey has been in 2 continents. I have done my bachelor's and master's from India, and I've done my master's in data science here in the United States. So just trying, it was a wonderful experience, different learning techniques, different teaching techniques in both different areas, but that has made what it is it is important to be inclusive enough, and all that thinking has come together. So that's my educational journey.
Wonderful. Thank you. Laura, how about you?
Yeah, so I have an undergrad degree in linguistics with a minor in Arabic, and I have a PhD in linguistics specializing in Arabic. So I've done lots of linguistics in Arabic, kind of my whole educational journey, which is very unusual. But it's worked out well for me of having those two pieces and like seeing how they fit together.
Great. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, my undergrad was in statistics and a second major in public policy. I chose those because I really fell in love with data and also the use of data to make decisions. And I should note, I studied this at Duke, which is known for Bayesian studies, and Bayesian statistics has become an important part of my career. And then my graduate degree was at NC State with Sarah here, one of my professors, which was fabulous. And I have a Master of Science in Analytics from that program.
And Ben.
Yeah, it's actually I usually don't see this theme, but I'm seeing a theme of having this combo of, I would say, less STEM and then also STEM. And so I did my undergraduate in sales and marketing, and then I did my graduate in applied analytics. And the reason for that was I honestly didn't know what I wanted to do. And I figured that it's a good place to be able to understand how the business minds are thinking, but then also be able to speak engineer and consultants. And it's even becoming more apparent as we get into like translating use cases, right? And if I relate it to what does this mean in the real life? When I go to companies and they say, I want to chat with my data, that is a use case for the customer. But what does that mean to an engineer? I need to know what type of databases. I need to know, are these analytical databases? Do I have to dedupe my data? There's a whole different type of lingo that business isn't speaking. So being this, I would say like data liaison or translator is the reason why I decided to do this path and kind of be able to mix both worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben, you're making my job as moderator super easy because you already identified the theme. And I hope that all of y'all listening out there understand that you can have a wide range of backgrounds and be in data. It does not have to be you started off and have a minor in data science and majored in statistics and then went on in this very specific path. That it is open to those who are really interested in that technology as well as the ability to be able to communicate it with other people. In that vein, Vishali, can you talk about what you think the top 3 hard skills that applicants really should be able to include on their resume to be competitive in a really difficult job market?
Oh yeah, it is getting difficult, but again, easier to learn things like it is. And the top 3 skills, even though in this age of AI, I would say the first number one is you should know your data bases, like SQL. Mastery is the basic that because like Ben is helping the customers to go on their Gen AI journey. There are many organizations, they are still in their databases mode where they're still using SQL. They might be using AI tools for writing their queries, but then you need to understand the basics of it and understand what is trying to retrieve, right? So that is number one. The second one could be your the languages that are Python, R, or SAS, or the languages that are actually needed for understanding the statistics behind it, because not everything is LLM, right? So you still need your logistic regression, you still need your decision tree. So understanding those concepts and then languages for that. And last would be the knowledge of cloud, and that is understanding your AWS's, GCP's, Azure's, the Git knowledge, anything that is associated with cloud, because that's where all of the applications are being developed and handed over. I can summarize this like, if you're looking for entry into a startup, then show your versatility, end-to-end ownership, right? If you're looking for big tech, then you need to have skills in cloud, distributed system, advanced ML. And if you are looking for a specific domain, like for example, healthcare, finance, or anything, you need to identify the domain specific tools. So that's the top three skills, I would say, that are required these days on your resume, as well
Yeah.
as knowledge of it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for talking about those hard skills. And Emily and Laura, I'd love to hear from you about some soft skills. Now, I actually hate that term, soft skills, but it's the general term that is used. All the other ones, professional skills, transferable skills, 21st century skills, none of those other names really do it. But you know what I mean when I ask about soft skills. What do you think are some soft skills that our audiences should really be developing to make sure that they are being competitive?
Yeah, I can start this. I think that these types of skills are so important, especially in the tech workspace. And I would say like number one is your communication skills. And I'm not totally biased. Sarah led this communication programming at NC State graduate school, which I really loved. But learning how to talk with other people, whether it be giving a presentation where you have a PowerPoint to reference, or if you're talking in a meeting, or if you're leading the meeting, being able to communicate clearly, but also sensitively and in a way that is friendly is a really important skill to develop, to both push for your ideas and kind of get your ideas out there, but also to learn from other people. And learning how to listen goes right along with communicating. One of the big components of the graduate program is also learning how to receive feedback. I think that the professional environment continues to be one in which people exchange a lot of feedback all the time. And so being able to receive feedback and give feedback is a really important skill. And then I would just say kind of being like a friendly coworker is a really important skill in this day and age, especially if I'm fully remote and many of my team members are. And so kind of putting in that work to, I recently got married and many of my teammates gave me kudos. And it was just really nice to have this friendly environment to recognize that we are people as well as workers, and that kind of being a participant in your team culture can be really helpful when especially if you're in a remote or hybrid setting.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely would add the ability, this is definitely part of communication, but which is to ask questions, both to ask questions of the people you're like working with or for. So like, for example, I'm currently collaborating with another company. And so trying to ask questions of them, but also asking questions of your coworkers. This field is like very big and changes very quickly. And I sort of came into it without like a deep background in it in many ways. And so a lot of what I've learned by asking questions. And it's a great way to learn stuff quickly and learn to be more efficient. And it's also kind of tied to like one of the best soft skills I think you can have is sort of the ability to think deeply and break things down into little pieces, and like asking questions saying, okay, I understand, this is a 5-step process. I don't understand how you get from 2 to 3. Let me break that down. That also is really helpful when things are breaking and you're trying to figure out why. And so being able to kind of tease things apart, break them down into smaller pieces, ask questions. And part of asking questions is Googling, to be honest, like learning how to Google well, and kind of think through how to do things.
So Laura, do you have a question that you like to ask? Is there a go-to question that you have?
Definitely just asking people for their like tips and tricks on things that make their life easier, especially in relating to like programming. Like the other day, one of my coworkers showed me there's a way in VS Code to like get your cursor to appear at 2 places so you can type the same thing and it appears both places. And like that's not like a huge time saver, but there are a lot of little time savers that just like add up. And those, like, I tend to feel like they're very dumb questions, but once people tell them to me, it's like great. It like makes life so much easier. And so sharing those kinds of information. It's also a really good way to build camaraderie of recognizing like, oh, hey, you can do this cool thing and I can't, or, oh, hey, I have a tip that will save you time. It's just a nice kind of collaborative thing to do.
Yes, and you've just shared that with all the people who are listening tonight too. So thank you very much for that. Ben, what else would you add? What are some things that applicants can do to really position themselves to stand out? What else would you add to what we've already heard?
So I think we kind of hit on, I wish I had something novel. I feel like the best way that I just, from my experience, has been to get kind of hard. So I guess it's a good thing talking about schooling and education. So whether or not there is this kind of press towards not needing to go to college or not needing to get formal education and using generative AI with like guided learning, I think there is a lot of value towards. Uh, there's a couple of us that have degrees in the background of our face. I can't think of the word of our video here, right? And I think there is value to get formally credentialed from an accredited university because it just starts for maybe I'll share a better example. So I started in sales, and when I was in sales at a tech company, I was previously at SAS and then moved to Google. Sales is typically the least technical role in the entire technical organization. Finance is more technical than sales. And so when I wanted to move to a technical role, it was very hard for me to prove myself that I was technical. Even if I could go and show my GitHub, or if I went and showed that I've built my own chatbots, it didn't really do it. But then when I got my master's in applied analytics, I got certified in Azure as an AI engineer. I got certified as a Google Cloud Data professional engineer. People started to quickly just kind of move, oh, you're a technical seller, even though they didn't see any proof of it. They just see that I've gotten these certifications. So that's, if I'm looking to provide advice on how to kind of differentiate yourself, there is a lot of value. And I've done this, and I'm just saying this is how I've done it, is to get these formal education accreditations.
Yeah, that's great. So those certifications really helped people to see that you were not only interested in this, but also able to do it. So that's great. Laura, that kind of brings me back to your background, which is a little bit different, but I'm wondering if there is some advice you have for people who are pursuing a liberal arts degree and how they might be able to combine their interest in that field into the field of data science.
Yeah, so I'm actually like very pro liberal arts educations because I think that like anyone can like take a spreadsheet and do things with it, but that doesn't mean you'll be very get anything like actually meaningful out of it. And so like for me, the fact that I have a very deep background in Arabic and linguistics has been incredibly beneficial for me doing work that very few other people can do, right? I have the ability to look at data, and yes, I can program and get the data and do all these things, but I have like a very specific set of hard skills and understanding, and I'm able to explain it to other people that I found to be incredibly beneficial. And I also think someone was asking about kind of standing out. For me, that's been a way I stand out is I have lots of research experience in very specific areas. And if you need someone who can do stuff even like kind of adjacent to that, I'm a very good fit. So like I currently work for an ed tech company. I don't specifically have a background in education as much, but everything I do is like very related to what I have degrees in. And so those things fit together very nicely and allow me to do work that I'm very interested in. And you also have to have the technical skills. I will also say, kind of talking about like accreditation. So I have a PhD, which I do actually think was worth my time. I learned a lot and I got a lot of like different skills. And especially if you want to do something that's a little more research focused, if people are in those fields, they usually recognize that, okay, if you have a PhD, you've done like a huge amount of research and have like a certain set of qualifications from that. So it's a little, in many ways, it's like less specific than like, oh, I'm certified in Azure, but it is for another way is like a very specific, okay, I'm good at research. I can do statistics. I can write. I can be inventive, all of those things.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. it makes me think about the idea of a data scientist or a data professional in general, and it's so wide. It means different things in different contexts. And so I'd like for you to think about what it means to have a role in data science. And Rochelle, I'm going to start with you, if you wouldn't mind kind of describing what being in a role in data science means for you in your work on either a weekly or monthly basis. What tools do you use? What do you recommend for students?
Yeah, sure. So, and I'll give a little bit background. Like I have done this data science role in within SAS, where we used to build solutions for our customers, and my customers were state local government clients, right? And within then, the data set that you are looking at is actually people. Each row in your data set is a person behind it sharing the story. May it be a child protective services, may it be a social benefit data set or whatnot, right? So when you are playing with that data set, you certainly assume some responsibility. So that is number one. And we need to take care that the models that we are building or the predictions that we are making, the scoring that we are doing, right, it is actually affecting someone's life decisions. And that's how I became sensitive to data handling. And obviously, there are regulations and whatnot on how you handle and regulate data. So that is something. Understanding the data is the most important thing. Then asking the questions, why are we building this model, right? So what is the end use? What is the business challenge that it is going to solve? So all these things are generally doesn't come in our academia. It comes in when we are trying to solve a business problem. So all the organizations mostly are looking for problem solvers, right? So, and your way as a data scientist is by building models or making a dashboard or creating an app that could then be used by someone non-technical to make decisions, be it retail, healthcare, finance, whatever it is, right? So most of my time is spent in understanding the problem, understanding the data, right? And then a minimal amount of time in your model building and then deploying it, right? So, and it's still true that data preparation takes a lot of time. It takes the most amount of time in your analytics or AI projects, if you will. So we spend a lot of time in that because not all data in real life is clean. So you get data from different sources. So spending time in those database related activities, and then your model building languages like R, Python, SAS, you name it. So that's how my time is spent. So I would say that most of my time is spent in understanding the data, understanding the problem, and then building the solution and asking the questions, why are we building the AI solutions or the model? So that would be in short, because my current role is in trustworthy AI. So we all more in ask those questions like for whom we are building it and for whom it might fail.
Yeah. Oh, Vishal, you said something that I wrote down because it's one of my favorite things to remind, especially new data scientists, is that each row in your data set is a person or affects a person. And I think if we can hold on to that idea, that it's just really vital to creating and developing models that are going to be hopefully helpful for those humans. So thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else want to talk about the role of data science in their work or anything to add on there?
Yeah, I can just chime in really quick. I think one really interesting thing about this panel is I think Vishali, you might be the only one who has the traditional like data science title. The rest of us have kind of variations of it. And I think that this is my 8th year working in the data science space. And 7 years prior to this, I worked in a more traditional research data scientist position. And now my role is security researcher, but I do a lot of data science as part of this job. And I think that that's a trend we're seeing in the field overall is there are a lot more nuanced job titles that are looking for really specific skills. So in my current role, they were looking for somebody who had a fairly substantial amount of Python experience because we use Python heavily with an open source tool we maintain for red teaming. But they were also looking for somebody who had some varied expertise in the responsible AI space and could speak to a lot of the types of things that we red team for that are not traditional in the security space. So security is often focused on cyber harms and cyber crime, but we're now paying a lot more attention to things like content harms and psychosocial harms and intellectual property harms and things that are not traditional in this type of space. And so I think one thing that I found helpful is as you're kind of growing in your data science career, figuring out the types of things you really enjoy doing. If you really enjoy data visualization, there are roles that do just that. If you really enjoy back-end data management, you might be more interested in some data engineering type roles. But I think that what I've seen in the last 8 years is a lot more nuance that focuses, kind of to Laura's point too, on very niche skill sets that honestly not as many people can do as when kind of data science first emerged on the market.
Right. And so looking at those skills and not just the job title, which can be really limiting or really obscure because you're not sure that it is about data science. But that's a great suggestion to be focusing on those skills that you really like to perform. It's nice. Ben or Laura, do you want to add anything to this one or do you want to move on? Move on? Okay. So this is kind of a fun question, and we'll see if it's maybe stretching creativity a little bit. But let's imagine we have a time machine, and we're going to go back to the month before you graduated from college, and you can tell yourself one thing about your career path. What would you tell yourself as you are getting ready to embark on your career? What's your advice to your past self?
So Sarah, I'll take a piece from what you actually mentioned and I use this quote when I speak to other universities and I serve as a mentor to my undergrad. And I use the Steve Jobs quote is that, and I'm going to butcher the quote now, I don't have it on a slide, but it's basically you can't make sense of what the dots and everything you're doing while you're doing it. But when you look back, these dots kind of come into a straight line. And it's not the quote. You can look up Steve Jobs' quote with dots in it and you'll see what it is. But you kind of hit on it where if I would give myself advice, I did my master's program and everyone told me don't do a master's program, don't spend the money unless you know exactly what it is that you're trying to do. If you have a role that you're specifically going for, if you have some sort of outcome you're looking for. I wanted to learn. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And now what was it? You can't get the dots. Thank you so much.
Oh, someone beat me
Uh,
to it. I just found it too.
yes, thank you. I was close. I was close.
Yes, you did great.
Um, so my advice to me would be to keep learning. It doesn't matter if you have the exact goal. It doesn't matter if there's another saying. I'll hit you all with all the sayings. It's a formula. It's hard work plus luck equals opportunity. And so if you work hard to continue learning, people always say if you're in New York, everyone says you always get lucky to find the apartment for some cheap discount, whatever it is. It's no, those people are looking, they're researching, they're trying their best, and then you end up getting the deal, or you're getting the job, or you're getting the opportunity. So my advice to myself would be go for it, even if you don't know what's at the end of the tunnel, just keep improving yourself and learning.
Yeah, my advice was going to be very similar in sense of like it's very hard to know where you'll go. And so like definitely take lots of different classes and learn lots of different things and pull them together. And especially in this day and age, like most of us will have many different jobs. And like that's okay, that's to be expected. And like try to kind of enjoy the journey. And like that's doesn't if you're like switching things and learning new things, that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. I tend to think about the fact that when I started graduate school, the job I would have when I finished graduate school didn't exist. So I started my PhD in 2014, and I ended up my first job out of graduate school was working on Alexa. Alexa didn't exist when I started graduate school, right? That was not something I could prepare for. I happened to have the right skill sets, and I knew someone who was like, "Oh, we need you," and that worked out very well for me. So definitely like enjoy those skill sets too, like learn the cool, interesting things and like do them well. That's, I don't know, it served me well and been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would totally echo that, but both Laura and Ben said, and my advice would be like the arc of life is long, so go live a bit. And like right after college, I spent 2 years working with AmeriCorps and made very little money, but had an amazing time. And I worked with students as a college advisor, and I'm still in touch with some of them, and they're doing really awesome and incredible things. And I am really grateful that I did that at that time in my life because it taught me a lot about myself and what I wanted. It was where I really understood that I cared a lot about data and a lot about policy, and that really led me into the career trajectory I'm in today. So it's a great opportunity to look around you and see, is this a time I can take a risk? And is this a time that I can help redefine what success is going to look like in my life? Because I think a lot of people coming out of college spend time focusing on somebody else's definition of success. And you get in a role where you look around and you're like, this isn't me. And there's a lot of ways to build a career that is you. So giving yourself the opportunity to do that, I think is really important.
Great. That's fantastic. Rashali.
Yeah, echoing all the great thoughts that has been mentioned in the panel. And when I go back and I see that my engineering degree helped me in my capacity to solve problem, my MBA degree that I learned just gave me understanding of the business and how it works, and my master's in data science helped me in connecting the dots using data. So, and if you think I have a bachelor's in electronics and telecommunication, MBA in marketing and data science. So there is not a connection directly over there. But then when I was pursuing and along this journey, it was all the learnings that come with small presentations. It was all the journey, all the learnings that come with those group projects that you do, right? So that really, even though that's a very small part in your entire degree or whatever masters that you're pursuing, but it teaches you a lot. Like now the way that I'm speaking over here, English is not my first language, but still giving those presentation, talking to many people, communicating, it really helps and it teaches you a lot. So uh, it's just enjoy the journey.
Hey, I love all of that advice. And I'm going to pull a little thread from all of them. It's about transferable skills, which is something that I'm really interested in and have done a lot of research because I think sometimes we have a tendency to think, okay, well, I took this class on communication, so I did it, check, I'm finished over here. I took this history class, I did it, check. I took this public policy class, I did it, check. And I love how all of you have said something about connecting the dots or getting the learning from all of these different places, thinking about all of those connections, putting yourself out there to be doing skills that are going to be beneficial for you. So taking those with you and building up those transferable skills and packing them in your suitcase and going through your career and figuring out what's next. So we're almost getting to the end of our time to be chatting, but I have to ask about AI before we turn it over and we start digging into questions. And obviously AI has changed, and by AI, I mean generative AI, but it has changed so many things in the last 3 years. What are your thoughts as we transition into looking at the questions? What would you like to say about AI and how it's influenced either your work or what you see for people who will be starting in data science soon?
It's
So I,
definitely, go ahead, Ben.
yeah. So I, this to say it's not going to impact is not fair, right? Like there are um, applications now or models now that can uh, help code, help debug, help create user interfaces. Like there's so much power to what you can do. I think don't quote me on this, but I believe it was Rushali that brought up that you ask the why, and that's the important thing to know why you're doing something. And so that is even more important. And when I get asked what makes a good AI engineer, what makes a good AI consultant different versus a great AI engineer, It's being able to ask the why question and know what is the impact of what you're doing, because that's going to be using the tools in the proper way and actually getting value from these tools. Because being able to spin up a POC or a demo is not actually going to drive a ton of value. It's going to be, how can you know and align, here's a POC, but here's revenue, or here's the customer impact, or here's the expenses saved. And if you can do that, that is going to be how you differentiate yourself in the data science field. So yeah.
Thanks, Ben. Roshali.
Yeah, like Ben said, definitely it has. For me, AI has been helping me in improving my productivity. That is for there. And in the new world where we are looking for jobs for data scientists, it is going to be a differentiator on how efficiently you're going to use these AI tools to code your things. And again, the question of why is always there. And this is some podcast that I was listening to where I was driving. The skills that you need, um, everyone basically needs epoch, that is going to separate us from the human intelligence, from the artificial intelligence, is empathy, presence, that was creativity, hope, and there was one more with an O there, but these are the things that human intelligence can bring in. So and I'm going to find what opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I would just add that my role today is only possible because of AI. Like my job is to test AI systems all day long, and that is because AI systems exist and because they do a lot of things not particularly well. There are some things they do great. Don't get me wrong. There's, to Ben's point, there's a lot of areas of growth and opportunity, but there are also areas of big harm. And so I think if you have interest in this space, paying attention to where some of these new opportunities are bubbling up. Like, for example, my understanding of statistical significance is really helpful to be able to compare between models and help us understand, is this model worse than the last model, as an example. So yeah, I would say that AI will definitely disrupt a lot of jobs, but it also is creating jobs too. And so being able to kind of pay attention to where those things are happening, I think is really important.
And I'll also add that like paying attention to how it's doing things is actually really important, because I think it's very easy to look at AI and say, oh, it can just do all of this with one push of a button and it will solve all the problems. Well, it doesn't. Like, you know, I work on a team where people mostly don't natively speak Arabic. I also don't natively speak Arabic, but I can actually like read it. And so people be like, well, I generated this example using ChatGPT. Why isn't it doing what I think it should be doing? And it's like, well, that's basically English just in Arabic. And so, but if you just don't know that, like someone has to know that. And so knowledge and being able to like comprehensively evaluate the output of AI is really important. And to think through, okay, not only it's not doing quite what I think it should be doing, why is it? Is it something I can fix with a prompt, or is it an issue with the underlying training data? And GPT is not as good as Arabic as Quen or whatever. And so like trying to like piece together, okay, this isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. Why? Which I think goes back to what Roshali was asking around the why is like really important.
Yeah, excellent. So I think we've hit on some of the questions that have been posed in our easy retro, but there's one that's gotten a lot of upvotes here, and it is, what are your go-to interview prep resources for data science? What would you recommend? And maybe as you're thinking about that, I'm going to say, if you have access to LinkedIn Learning, the AI coach in LinkedIn Learning does some great interview prep that is actually quite helpful.
And I can take this one. For me, when I was doing my prep for data science roles, first things first, like getting to know the databases correctly, at least the foundation of it. Now I know AI can do all your SQL queries and whatnot, understanding the databases. So W3 Schools was my go-to. Then Lead Code for uh, understanding the data science questions that have been asked in your big tech companies. That was my go-to. Then I had also kept like a note of all the basic things, like basic concepts of databases, basic concepts of statistics, and then the basic concepts of your Python or whatever language that you might do. So it really combines all of these things together, and that those were my go-to resources. But now you can add in your how to make agents, how to make AI system that is less biased. So you can add in skills and understanding for fairness and whatnot. You can also explore what explainability means when you are generating all these models. So there are a lot of things that, but just bucket it from the sections. Oh, for database, I'm going to do this. For statistics, I want to do this. For LLMs, I'm going to do this. For RAG, I'm going to do this.
Great. Does anyone else have something to add for interview prep? A favorite? So another question related to job search is about transitioning. So when you are transitioning from one career to data science, what kind of suggestions do you have? And whether that is just from a different field in industry or in academia, do you have any suggestions for people transitioning to data science?
Yeah, I could take a first stab at this one. I'm equating this to, I don't know what you're transitioning from, but when I looked at me going from the sales side of things, the key thing that I was competing against was people that were doing data science or what that role was for the time that I was doing sales, right? So if I someone that's been in the workforce just as long as me, and we were at equivalent career points, they were doing that role longer than I was doing that role because I came from a different world. So the key thing for me was to figure out what are my unique skills in this side of the Venn diagram that the person didn't get because they weren't in sales, and which are the things I've learned from formal education or teaching myself that can fit on this side of the Venn diagram in data science. And then when I started to see the role that had the crossover, I would talk about those crossover pieces of how can I take the things that I know that are differentiated and bring value or a unique perspective or a unique point of view to bring to this data science role. So think about what is the role that you're going for, what have you done, and then where is that crossover? And that's going to be the sweet spot, in my opinion.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. Kind of my advice once you're sort of in a position, or as you're kind of getting maybe more training or whatever, is to ask a lot of questions. When I started my first tech company job, it's just a vastly different way of doing things than in academia. You know, in academia, in many ways, I was my own boss. I was doing my own thing. I had my plans. I read my papers. I kind of did my thing. I knew who to ask for help. Suddenly, it's just a very different system. We have sprints. What is a sprint? It's how you organize work with a group of people. And so, like, learning about that and learning about like Git and how you share your work and all of these things. There's just like a lot of like logistical things to learn, which I think can be kind of overwhelming, but definitely like ask questions. In many ways, they're not actually that complicated. It's just you kind of need someone to give you the like, oh, here's what we're doing. This is why this thing is happening. And once someone can give you that information, you're good to go. And you can ask more questions from there. For me, that was a big challenge of just some of the logistics and where to find information and how day-to-day life worked.
Yeah, Laura, you just mentioned GitHub. There's a question here about what are best projects or skills to highlight in your GitHub portfolio with a follow-up to it. Do you need to have a GitHub or public presence? What are your thoughts on that?
I do not have a GitHub personal like repo portfolio. I just have a lot of experience using it for work. For me, that's worked fine. I'm sure depending on kind of what positions you're looking for, you might need them. So yeah, I think it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. My initial also entry into Git was we used it to store data, which is 100% not what you're supposed to use Git for. So there's also things like that too, of like, okay, well, how do you use this versus how does everyone else use this?
Yeah. Laura, you just said something so funny. I have to show you. Emily's class made me this "it depends" mug many years ago because it's my favorite answer. So when you just said that, it made me think of my "it depends." It depends. It depends.
It does, which is not a very helpful answer, I realize. I
But
mean,
it's a real answer.
it is a real answer. If you have something that would be useful to someone else, definitely do it. Is kind of my starting point. And if you don't, figure out what roles you're interested in, if they'd be helpful, and if it's not, maybe don't stress about it.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I totally agree with that. If you're applying to really large organizations, I'd say at least a couple thousand people or larger, but smaller organizations, I think, are leaning this way too. You'll see a lot of structured interviewing where the interviewers can only ask specific questions in a specific order, and usually you are not allowed to ask questions that are off somebody's resume, and almost certainly you're not allowed to ask questions about somebody's GitHub, and in some circumstances you might not even be able to see somebody's GitHub. And I should be totally clear, I'm not speaking on behalf of Microsoft, I'm speaking on behalf of trends I've seen in the industry. So I certainly think GitHub is a great opportunity to learn and to try new things, but I would not expect that every organization you interview with is going to even be able to look at your GitHub, with the clear exception that every so often you will see job postings that ask for people explicitly active on GitHub, active on Discord, especially if they're contributing to some sort of public or open source repo or package that somebody's looking to hire for. So there are certainly circumstances in which it is extremely beneficial. But if you are applying broadly, I would not necessarily say it's going to move the needle if an organization can't look at it.
Okay, so a little while ago, I asked you all to do a time machine and go back in time. And now this question is for crystal ball gazing. Where do you see the field of data science as a whole is heading over the next 5 to 10 years? And how do you see it changing, especially with the use and inclusion of AI? Get those crystal balls out, polish them off. Let's hear what you got.
My crystal ball is very much on this like production enterprise level view of it, which again, give that your own context there. But it goes to the role will be more of not understanding your specific thing. It's understanding how your thing is impacting everything else because it's going to become this like connected web. For example, there's a buzz kind of going around of multi-agentic systems, right? This is agents speaking to agents with an orchestrator agent, and all of this happening autonomously, right? And if you are in charge of building one of those agents, and that agent needs to call this data source and needs to know this many tools, you need to understand. I mean, I feel like we're getting to this crux of this, the why, right? Why is this agent doing this and what's the purpose? Because if that agent breaks, the entire structure changes. And so I think that the role is going to be more kind of, if I call it like a human manager, right? A manager in the loop rather than a human in the loop of where it goes, because it's important to know how do you connect the data sets, how do you prompt it correctly, how do you instruction tune, how do you do all the right protections to make sure you're getting the right answers and red team it. But ultimately, if you don't understand how these things are working and what is the value, it's going to be this kind of mesh of bringing where data science needs to think like business and needs to think like data science. It's going to, I'm seeing this kind of mesh happening as we speak.
Yep. And I can take one more stab at it. It is like there are going to be two camps: builders of AI and users of AI within the data science community, right? So builders of AI, think of them as, okay, you're creating those LLMs, the 8 to 8, the MCPs and whatnot. So in that role, you need to know the traditional data science thing plus the computer science element to it, because then you are doing API calls, you're building those agents and whatnot. But if you are in some industries where they still require the human in the loop, where maybe healthcare or finances, which or public sector even, right? So over there, it will be more focused on how a data scientist does that work in a more productive fashion. So there will be those users of AI role for data scientists where you are using those AI tools in making the applications or creating those applications based off of it, but not necessarily developing those applications from scratch. So these two camps I see evolving. That's my hot take.
That's great.
Yeah, I would just add, I think we'll see some continued growth, especially in specific sectors, like people who can work with really big data sets, people who can work with streaming data sets. Drones are more accessible today than they've ever been. There's a ton of information that comes in from those. There's more open data that's available. And so I think the general sense is more in a lot of cases, plus AI in whatever sense that means. And I think it is really important to be paying attention to how AI is entering workflows. To Ben's point, agents are kind of all the rage right now and are doing a lot of really interesting things. But kind of like I mentioned earlier, I think there's a lot of niche and interesting jobs that will be coming up in 5 to 10 years. Like Laura mentioned, the job she had out of her PhD was not something that existed when it started. I think the same thing is true today. I think we're going to see roles that come out in 5 to 10 years, and having a nice combination of interesting skills that you're passionate about is a great opportunity to set yourself up for success.
Do you have any last crystal ball suggestions?
I will say some of the soft skills we talked about earlier, especially what Emily was saying around communication, I think will be really important because everyone sort of knows that AI is a thing, but doesn't necessarily understand it. And so being able to communicate it to people with varying degrees of familiarity is incredibly important and incredibly useful. And it's a hard skill to develop, but it is, I think, will be critical. And that also actually will help you if you're in a job interview of being able to talk about it cohesively.
Fantastic. Y'all, we are at the end of our time together. You had so many great questions out there. Panelists, you are amazing. Thank you for sharing your stories, your expertise. There were 3 big takeaways we had tonight, which for those of you who know me, I love the 3s. Number 1 is understanding the why, right? Understanding why you're doing what you're doing, why you're using AI, why you choose not to use AI, why you are looking at that data, the business understanding. That's number 1. Keeping humans at the center, and that includes all of the concerns about bias, as well as just remembering that your data represent people. And the last big takeaway is keep learning. Keep learning, keep finding things, making those connections, connecting those dots. And thank you so much, panelists. Thank you for your great questions, participants. And we really appreciate you spending time with us tonight. Thank you very much.
You guys have been amazing. I hope you have been as inspired. Like, I mean, I hope you've inspired one another. I mean, it's just so exciting to hear your wisdom and your vulnerability and all those other good things. I really appreciate you bringing that all to the table tonight. So thank you guys. Thanks, audience members, for showing up. We had about 250 people attend this evening. I love seeing that. This recording will be available on YouTube, so we're really excited about that. You can also check out past panelists, but I have to say, this one was a good one. So start with this one, share it with your friends, and check out the others if you can. I do want to put in a quick plug for our next Foundations of AI class, Intro to Deep Learning, with another Institute for Advanced Analytics alum. I'm clearly a little bit obsessed with all of the bright folks that come out of that program, but Amy Hemmeter is an incredible instructor, and this is a 4-hour workshop that will take place in a few weeks